Hi everybody, in this video for LYNX Whiteboard we're going to have a look at the free maths tools that come included with LYNX Whiteboard and where you can find them. So to do that I've got a new document that I'm going to create here. So we've got a nice blank page here. I would like to put a nice maths grid style background onto my page. So to do that we're going to go to my page options and to edit the background. Now in the tools that we get for the background, down here are things like the colour scheme for the background, so I can pick a nice colour on there, but we also have all of the grids and the lines. So we have dotted paper, a standard grid, triangles, lines, slider bar of course to change the size, hexagons, scientific grid there. I think this grid is used with accounting, things like that, and we have a really great quadrant sort of coordinates grid as well that we can have on the screen. I'm going to actually choose just the standard grid, and I think that page sort of size is perfect. So once I've got that set and I exit, I won't be able to click on it or mess around with it again. Now, we often use shapes in maths. So if I go to my additional tools, here you can see a shapes button, and these are some default shapes that I can bring on. So you pick a shape, pick a color, and I can drag that onto the screen. Notice that I can set that to snap to the grid. So I think I'll do that and make it quite large there. I can also do the same with rectangles as well. So as I start to create with the rectangle, let's bring something on there. You can see it's snapping to the grid. If I don't want it to snap to the grid, I can turn off enable snapping. So this time, if I collect something else, if we have a yellow pentagon, this time it's not bothered about anything to do with the squares of my grid. Let's have one more. This time though, I do quite like the snapping to grid. I've put the grid on there for a reason. So let's have a blue triangle, and again we'll snap this to the grid there. Okay, perfect. Now I can still edit these if I want to, so I can make them larger. You'll notice at the moment it's doing it only snapping to the grid, but that's absolutely fine. Now just so you know, we also have in our editing tools here the ability to mess around with these shapes in a special way, and that is mainly for the circles and the rectangles. So it's the shape split tool. So when I click inside the shape and hold and move my mouse around, it will split the shape up into fractions. So if I let go, I now have the sectors of the triangle, of the circle. We also can do exactly the same with the shape split on the rectangle here, and I go down for rows and across for columns, and I can let go whenever I'm happy to do so. And again, then these pieces will move around linked to the grid. And I should be able to click inside them as well and start typing and so on. So it's a quick way of making a table. So for example, I can join all these together using the group button from the floating toolbar. So they all move around together. Now, my circular fractions here, I can actually mess with them as well, and I can actually change the angle that they are to and make them a bit longer and bigger and things like that, so we can really mess around with it. It won't fit back in there again, will it, at the moment? Quite interested in that shape. I wonder what that angle is there. I need a maths tool to help me, and I wonder how long those lines are. So to find my maths tools, I would go into the plus button here, and I need to go to the content that we give you in LYNX. This brings up the content box. You can see I've been looking in one of the folders, but that's not going to help me find my maths tools. So let's go home, and here are the maths tools. So when I click in here, you can see that I have a protractor, for example, and I have a centimetre or an inches ruler. So to use these on the screen is quite easy. So I can position the ruler and then turn the joystick so it's going to measure this line for me. I can even turn this on so that it will snap to the exact length of the line, stamp that on, and you can see it's put that line on there for me. Now I can shrink this down as well and move it around the screen. Now with the protractor, again, if I want to measure this angle, on a touch screen it's much easier, and that's what I'm using right now. So I'm positioning this over the shape there, and again I've got these nodes so I can make sure that we're definitely lining this up correctly and stamp that, and you can see that the angle is there underneath, and that angle actually is something that we can mess with. There's the line that I created before, that's fully editable as well, and here's the lines of the angle that I've put on too. So all of these mathematical tools are interactive, and the lines and angles that you leave behind are also interactive as well, and quite easy to use. We also have interactive clocks. Pinch those down so we can mess around with those as we wish. What I quite like about the clocks is that in the interface here I can decide which hands we're seeing, so I could take away the second hand and maybe the minutes hand. I always say to children that you can learn how to tell the time just from the hour hand initially, which hour is it nearly at, and so on, and then we can add in the minute hand as we start to get better at working out exactly when it's an o'clock or half past, things like that. And we can decide actually we just want a digital clock, and so on, all controlled from the floating toolbar that comes up on any of the items that we bring out onto the page. There's also a calendar, which is really cool, and some dice for probability or for creating a game on the screen, and we just hit the dice button to roll those. We can remove dice, we can add dice. It's that easy to do. So those are the main maths tools. Just to point out, there are more shapes also included within LYNX too, where we can be pulling out arrows and stranger shapes onto the screen there as well. So an octagon there that we can manipulate and type into, and so on. And of course, from the floating toolbar, change the color of it, and so on. So enjoy exploring the maths tools. I hope you'll find them really useful.